Luke 15, just a couple of messages left talking about mercy, not sacrifice. So much to be said here. And remember, Jesus, multiple times in the Gospel of Matthew, told the Pharisees, you need to go learn what this means. If you knew what this means, you wouldn't have condemned the guiltless, or you wouldn't have been grumbling when you should be celebrating. Our goal, as we talk about these things, is to come to understand something that in Jesus' day and down through the ages really has robbed believers of being able to thrive in God's grace and just enjoy close communion with Him. The Pharisees were very religious people and just completely missed it. They didn't understand what mercy, not sacrifice means. Tonight's title is Coming Home. In Luke 15, a great chapter for that. You just kind of look as you turn there, you'll see three familiar parables from Jesus. Probably his most famous one is the parable of the prodigal son, as it's known. Takes up most of the latter part of the chapter. Maybe the Good Samaritan would be a rival for most famous parable. But maybe you got to go home, spend some time at home with family over the holidays, these last several weeks. How many of you, if we go all the way back to Thanksgiving, say Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, somewhere in there, you got the whole family together? Now, I understand we have loved ones that have passed on and aren't able to be with us, but as far as those who are living, maybe it's your parents and your siblings, or your children and your spouse, how many of you say, yeah, the whole family got together at some point over the holidays? It looks like about half, maybe a little more than half. What a blessing. I hope you're really thankful for that. How many had to work on the holidays, or some of the holidays? I know a couple of you did. So, yeah, there are different experiences that we have. I know for some of you, even the thought of getting everyone together, it seems like it's never going to happen, maybe because of distance, geographically, or distance, maybe emotionally, or things like that. So what a blessing it is. I hope we really cherish those times where it's like, wow, everyone's together and we just have a special time together. You remember that song, you probably heard it over Christmas time, Bing Crosby's 1943 hit. Well, he's the one who sang it. Irving Berlin is the writer of I'll Be Home for Christmas. Well, it's become a classic, but in its day, it was a little controversial. And maybe you've read about this. We're talking World War II, of course, 1940s, and it opens with these lines, I'll be home for Christmas, you can count on me. Well, you can see how that kind of hit a sour note for our troops that were overseas and their families here back home who would long for that but knew it wasn't going to be a reality. But it just kind of expresses that confidence, that hope that everyone would love to enjoy. And then you get to the end of the song and it says, what? If only in my dreams, and it's kind of like all of the hope and promise of it just kind of melts away into imagination. But that same, so actually like BBC Radio limited their playing of some of these like homecoming sounding songs over Christmas time because it really was a source of hurt for a lot of these separated families. It's fascinating that the very thing that was upsetting about that song, its kind of aching honesty, has made it an enduring classic that now we just expect to hear around Christmas time, whether we're going to be home or not. Well, do you feel at home with God? Just like as you go throughout your week on a regular basis, you're living your Christian life, if you're a believer, got some pictures here to just kind of represent that home, cabin in the woods, kind of Christmas time, and you just see outside it's cold, outside it's dark, but in there, wow, it looks like warmth and light, and you can just imagine inside what a cheer is there. What is the Father's house like? To come into fellowship with Him. Many people just live their lives being kind of distant from God. It's like, yeah, I know the Bible talks about a closeness, like a being at home with Him, an intimacy, a fellowship with God where you're an insider kind of. But I always feel like it's not that I'm not invited, it's just that I'm a little bit distanced from that. I don't have the warmth and closeness of feeling inside, feeling at home with God all the time. Well, we know that inside is light and warmth and laughter and family and friends, communion, rest, fellowship, good food, lively music, joyful festivities. These are kind of the way the Bible describes the closeness to God that we experience in communion with Him and look forward to in the new creation. And everyone's invited. So what prevents us from experiencing that sense of closeness and acceptance and family with God, if that's a struggle for us sometimes, as probably a lot of us would say it is? The joy of being at home with God and really feeling inside and close and accepted. It's like John, remember at the Last Supper, and I'm sitting next to Jesus. He's the disciple that Jesus loved. And when there's a question, people like John, ask Jesus, and he just leans against Jesus and just no inhibitions. Hey, I'm close to him, I love him, I'll whisper a question in his ear, and I know he's going to answer me. And compare that with, like, say, I don't want to pick on Thomas, but Thomas is maybe at the other end of the table, and like he wouldn't, be that brave or bold. He just kind of maybe feels a little bit like, yeah, I'm not sure I'm that close. Or think of the home of Lazarus and Mary and Martha, and here's Mary sitting at Jesus' feet and just soaking in that, His presence. She's at home. She's thriving. There's this joy and this warmth. And then here's Martha. It's like she's busy, she's religious, she kind of wants what's right, but she's actually got a bad attitude and she's grumbling while Mary's enjoying the closeness. Well, the answer of the difference between why we are outside kind of wishing for that warmth of being home compared to those in John and Mary's place that are there, that are enjoying that communion, is in large part our attitude about what it takes to get there. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Mercy, not sacrifice. It's a corrective that Jesus uses to help us find what truly pleases God. Remember all those Old Testament texts we worked through to show all these things we thought would please God: offerings, sacrifices, feasts, fasting, all this stuff in Jesus. God tells us, actually, that's disgusting and repulsive and sinful to me. Well, what's going on? They had missed mercy, the grace, the love of a heart that receives God's gift and follows in joyful gratitude instead of trying to earn it by performance. So, okay, remember this text. This is where we started. This has been many, many weeks ago, so let's review really quickly. Matthew 9, Jesus reclined at table in the house. This is the house of Matthew. Tax collector, hated, sinful, but just got saved, and now he's hosting his tax collector friends, and other sinners show up. They're reclining with Jesus and his disciples. And so you get the picture. Matthew tells us who's eating at this meal: Jesus, his disciples, and a bunch of sinners and tax collectors. Okay, not the Pharisees. They're not part of the meal. Then the next verse says, when the Pharisees saw this, they said to his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" So you get the picture. Here they are reclining at table in Matthew's house. And I picture the Pharisees just kind of looking in the windows. What is this Jesus up to now? We've seen a lot of really people with bad reputation going in this house. What's going on? And they find fault. So here are people surrounding Jesus in the house, enjoying communion with him. And here are some other people outside the house with a bad attitude, missing out. Okay, where do we want to be? How do we get there? Next verse, when Jesus heard it, he said, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick." And boy, our culture's really getting this wrong today, trying to say, well, Jesus was just, accepted everybody and accepted and celebrated diversity and affirmed everybody. Jesus, a doctor doesn't affirm everyone. All right, the illustration is here. These people know they're sick and they've come to me for healing and they get it. And people who know they're sinners and come to Jesus for forgiveness get it. Those who don't think they're sick, well, guess what? They never take medicine. They don't go see the doctor. Those who don't think they're sinful, they don't come to Jesus, and so they don't get it. That's what Jesus is saying here. We understand that, I hope. And then verse 13, "Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice, for I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." And a few chapters later, Matthew 12, verse 7, "If you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, then you wouldn't have condemned the guiltless." That's when he had healed a man on the Sabbath. So here's kind of one takeaway point from those. When we miss mercy, not sacrifice, we end up outside the house grumbling when we should be inside celebrating. And what's interesting is Luke actually fills us in on Jesus' teaching in this same scene. Matthew moves on to other things. Mark actually treats it even more concisely. But what we find when we compare Luke is that Jesus didn't just say, go learn what this means and trust them to go sort it out and figure it out on their own. But that when he said, go learn what this means, he actually told 3 parables to help them understand what they were missing. Why they were outside the house grumbling when they should have been inside the house celebrating. And so it's instructive for us. Now sometimes we go through seasons where have you ever just realized, wow, I'm kind of a grouchy Christian? And I feel like I deserve to be close to God. I ought to be. I've tried to be. Why don't I experience some of the blessing and closeness and just the thriving and flourishing that other people have? We're outside the house grumbling. Don't you want to be inside the house celebrating? Let's figure it out what this means. Let's go on this journey with the Pharisees through the greatest teacher, showing us by story how to grasp, how to get from outside the house grumbling to inside the house celebrating. Okay, look at verse 1. Luke 15. Now, the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to hear him, and the Pharisees and scribes grumbled. Okay, this is outside the house grumbling, bad attitude, same scene we have in Matthew 9. This man receives sinners and eats with them. Jesus' point in the next 3 parables is to show that the Pharisees really should have been happy about this. The cause for celebrating, they had made a cause for grumbling. What is the parable of the prodigal son really about? Anyone have a thought? Shout it out. What's the point of the parable of the prodigal son? Yeah, thank you. And I'll repeat that in case you probably couldn't hear it. But a lot of times we think, well, it's a story about how you can come home even when you've really messed up, like that prodigal son. And it is. And we think it's a story about the Father's love, that he's always willing to forgive. And he is. But as we look at this context for the parable, we see that really it's a parable to show that you shouldn't be outside the house grumbling when you should be inside the house celebrating. That's where we find the older brother at the end of the passage, the same place the Pharisees were at the beginning of the chapter. They're outside looking in saying, hey, these people shouldn't be celebrated. They've done so much wrong. And that's what the picture is of the older son going, hey, why is the father embracing these people? I'm the one who really deserves God's attention. And so this is the point, actually, of all 3 of these short stories. The lost sheep, the lost coin, the lost son, is to show that when really messed up people come inside the house, that God's people ought to celebrate. Okay, so let's continue the chapter here a little bit. Before we do, let me just ask you this. What are most of us looking for that causes us to celebrate? As you think about that a little bit, let me back up a square. What would your attitude be if someone from the LGBTQ community came into church or wanted to be involved in some of our gatherings and worship or came forward and made a profession of salvation? What would your attitude be if someone who's an immigrant who's here illegally, starts to take an interest in what we're doing here? Or someone maybe who's from a Muslim family or background or dresses according to that culture. And if any of those situations, or say if someone from one of those situations moves in next to you, next door, or gets a job at the cubicle next to yours at the office, and we have these opportunities now to interact with each other's lives. Does this, A, make us really grouchy and grumbling, or B, give us cause to celebrate if someone who is sick is maybe coming into close contact with the physician through us or through our church, through our witness. And that's kind of what's going on in the story of the prodigal son. And what's going on is Jesus welcomes these sinners into his house, and it's like, wait, the Pharisees are going, these guys are the bad guys. You're supposed to stay away from these people. We don't want to see grace in these people's lives. And they've totally missed what Jesus is all about, what the gospel's all about, what God sent his son for. And if we're not careful, we can, let's go back to that square, what makes us celebrate? What are we after? And it's so easy for us to just kind of go along with the crowd and say, well, I'm after a promotion. I'm after success at work. I'm after, this next home upgrade or this next car upgrade. I'm after bigger investments. I'm after people's respect. That's a big one. I'm after, these hopes and these dreams and that hobby and this artistic pursuit and these. And those are the things that we celebrate and that we're passionate about and that get us up in the morning. Okay, now let me ask you this question. What does God celebrate? What is he after? Okay, now let's continue reading, starting in verse 2. So he told them this parable. What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he has lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, look at this word, rejoicing. And when he comes home, okay, this is our topic tonight. So coming home, coming into the house when you've been astray, when you've been outside. What happens when that one rascal who should have stayed in the pasture and now is causing everybody else trouble and making the shepherd go to great lengths, and he comes home? What should our attitude be? Oh, boy, that stray sheep, boy, you don't know how much trouble you don't, I really am grumbling and grouchy because of your behavior. No. When he comes home, verse 6, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost. Just so, I tell you, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents, mercy, than over 99 righteous persons, sacrifice, that need no repentance. Okay? Isn't there something in us that wants to hold at arm's length and resent and kind of leave a little bit of burden of shame on that one who's gone astray, or that one who's been kind of opposing what we stand for and believe, and it has maybe hurt your family, or as maybe you feel like is hurting our country, when that one comes into the fold? Or when we see that one out astray and there's an opportunity to go after them, are we grouchy about it? Or is that something to celebrate? Well, God celebrates it. The shepherd gets excited about this. Or, verse 8, what woman having 10 silver coins, if she loses one coin, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and seek diligently until she finds it? And when she has found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me, for I found the coin that I had lost. Just so, I tell you, there is joy before the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Here's the picture. Celebration takes place in heaven when those who are very far from God realize it and come to him. That's what ought to get us up in the morning. That's what we ought to be passionate about. That ought to be our hope and dream and what we sell. I don't think I can tell you with a pretty high degree of certainty, there's no rejoicing in heaven when your favorite team scores a touchdown. All right, it's just not. It just doesn't, it's not meaningful in the eternal picture.
That's right.
There's no rejoicing in heaven when someone, finally gets the corner office, when all of these things that seem so important to us and can capture our attention, to what we really ought to be after. Oh, I read my Bible every day. I go to church. I've dusted my Awana trophies on the shelf, once a week, and I've just, God's probably pretty pleased with me. It's those people that are so far from him, boy, they sure are a threat to my lifestyle. And God wants us to see, we want to go after the lost one. What we want to get excited about is a homecoming for the ones that are furthest from him. God's work in people's lives. That's what should cause us greatest joy. So each story, the sheep, the coin, and then the son, each one ends with a party in heaven, a celebration inside the house. That the right response is, hey, let's rejoice together. Okay, now let's continue reading, starting in verse 11. Jesus said, "There was a man who had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me.' And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country, and there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. And when he came to himself," verse 17, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants.'" I want to pause there. The younger son is not at home. He's apart from the father. He's away. There is that house of warmth and joy, and he's outside of it. He's distant from it. What is his attitude that is keeping him outside the house, that is keeping him from coming in? I'm kind of fishing for something, so there can be a lot of right answers here. I just want to take your answers till I get kind of a word I'm looking for, and you're going to pick different words, which is fine. But who wants to be first? Now that I've set it up to make it sound like you're probably not going to say what I'm looking for. In a word, what's keeping the younger son from the father's house? Now that he's realized, you could say sin, but now that he's kind of realized his sin, but he's got these apprehensions about going back. What is it? Pride. I heard guilt, pride, shame. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks. That didn't take long. And those are all correct. The one I had put down is shame. And it's this attitude. Well, I'm not worthy to be called his son anymore. If I were to go home, there's no reason, based on my record, that I should be accepted. And so if the question is what keeps us outside the Father's house, in the younger son, we see the shame of this attitude. I think we have a slide for this. In order to be accepted, I must have something to offer. And since I've kind of spoiled my sonship, well, what else could I offer? Maybe I could be a servant. There we go. Hey, I'm starving here in this pig pen. If I could just earn my keep at home, Dad, I'll work from sun up to sundown. Master, boss, I'll work from sun up to sundown. I'm too ashamed. I'm too guilty. I'm too a mess to be able to be worthy. But if I could earn it, then Dad would maybe give me a chance. And for a lot of believers, that's really the attitude that keeps us outside the house, where that warmth and fellowship and joy and celebration is we just feel like, well, yeah, some people could be there, but I'm no John, I'm no Mary. If I kind of knocked on the door, and Jesus answered, he'd be like, oh, you. Well, let me think about it. Wipe your feet. And we almost think, the things I've done, my heart's so far from what I should be. I've fallen short of him so many times, and in order to be accepted, I really would have to have something to offer, and I don't think I do. That attitude keeps us outside the house when it shouldn't. And that is an important point of this parable. Now let's keep reading. Pick it up in verse 20. He arose and came to his father. He found out his shame mentality that kept him out of the house was wrong, didn't he? I love this. While he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt Compassion. There's the grace. That's what it's about. It's about mercy. It's not all the sacrifice the son had done to earn a place in his father's house. He had a huge deficit when he met the father, but in the father's compassion and mercy, he ran and embraced him and kissed him. That's the father's attitude toward his daughter, toward his son that's out there in the field. I don't think he'd want me in there. He does. Let go of this shame thing. It's like, well, I haven't done enough. I'm not good enough. I've done all these wrong things. It's sin to keep staying outside in that shame. What does God tell us? If any man confess his sins, God is faithful and just to forgive and cleanse. He wants you inside the house. He has compassion. He wants to embrace and kiss and welcome. Verse 21, the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat. And here it is, the theme in all three stories. We're going to celebrate this. This isn't something to be ashamed of. This isn't like, okay, well, we'll slip in the back door. You know, I'm not sure how this is going to look. No, this is neighbors. Come over. This is wonderful. For this, my son, verse 24, was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. That's the party in heaven, the celebration in the Father's house that's offered to us, that we're invited to. And shame is the first attitude that keeps us out. Well, let's find the second, starting in verse 25. Now the older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And that's why I don't think party is too strong a word for what happens in heaven when a sinner comes to repentance, when someone who's been astray comes home. And he called one of the servants, verse 26, and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, your brother has come. He's come home. And your father has killed the fattened calf because he has received him back safe and sound. What's the older brother's attitude? Verse 28. But he was angry and refused to go in. Okay, some of us, we're too shy to go in because I don't think I'm good enough. Shame. Other people are angry and actually refuse to go in. His father came out, the end of verse 28, and entreated him. But he answered his father, look, these many years I have served you. See, for him it's about sacrifice. I've done enough, and I've never disobeyed your command, yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him. Okay, what is the, if we could say in a word, the older brother's attitude that keeps him outside the house? Sorry? He's jealous. He's jealous. That's a correct answer. I'm hearing pride over here. Pride's the one I'm looking for. It's this attitude, and it's indignant. It's resentment. It's jealousy, envy. But it's a prideful attitude ultimately that says, because of what I offer, I therefore must be accepted. I have served you faithfully all these years, so I'm the one that should be celebrated. I should have the best robe. I should have the party. And these are the two attitudes that keep so many people outside this house of the Father, where that warmth and joy and acceptance and celebration is, where He wants you, and where I hope you want you, but here you are instead, either in shame, going, oh, he doesn't want me, I'm not good enough, I'd have to clean up first. Or of pride, well, I really deserve, I haven't been blessed like I should have been. I've been so faithful. Sometimes I see these people, they're just Johnny-come-latelys. Remember that parable about, the people who worked all day, and then those that came in at the 9th hour, and they got a penny, and then the guys who worked all day, well, I deserve more then, and they got the penny, and it's like, wait, now I'm grumbling, and I have a bad attitude because someone else was blessed. And that's where the older brother is. It's like, I can't enjoy being in the Father's house because I see myself as above someone else that seems to be blessed. I haven't experienced the blessing and thriving I think I really ought to have achieved by now because of my record. And so they're outside the house grumbling when they should be inside the house celebrating. Well, verse 31, the father says to this older son, "You are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad. For this your younger brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found." He's come home. So both attitudes, I would say these are the two most common that keep people today outside the Father's house. And I'm talking, it's about salvation, but it's also about communion for those who are saved and are just kind of at a little bit of distance from God. It's like, maybe you think back to Christmas time. It's like, I know we weren't all together, but we talked on the phone, or we texted, we got to FaceTime, and that's how, for a lot of people with God, it's like, I wouldn't say I'm Mary, there by his feet just soaking it in, but, we talk. I pray, I read my Bible, but there's not that, I wouldn't say I'm inside the house. And these are the attitudes about what it takes to get there. We think it's about sacrifice. I haven't done enough sacrifice. Or I've done enough sacrifice. Both attitudes Jesus wants to correct. Toxic thinking. Highly religious people that thought they were closest to God in their striving, yet they had missed what God truly wants and were farthest from him. What's the difference then in the change of attitude that brings younger brother inside the house and now he's enjoying the Father's embrace? Well, the older brother is still kind of estranged and at a distance. It's this. Verse 21 versus verse 29. Verse 21, the younger brother's attitude: I have sinned. I am not worthy. That's verse 21, younger brother. And look at verse 29, older brother: I have never disobeyed. Pride and shame keep us outside the house, and we all struggle with one or both of these. What gets you inside is the change of attitude that goes from either I must have something to offer, or I offer enough, to I have sinned. I'm not worthy. I don't have anything to offer. But if God will have me in, I'll come home. I have sinned versus I've never disobeyed. And now think back to some of those groups of people that I mentioned earlier, and it's like, well, do they deserve God's grace? Wow, my record compared to theirs. I've never done any of those terrible kinds of things, maybe. And it's that older brother pride that keeps us on the porch. Few struggle with that. I just want to point you back to the first parable in the chapter. I'm not that lost sheep. I'm one of the 99 that stay pretty close to home. I'm a rule keeper. What does Isaiah say? All we, like sheep, have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way. And until we realize we're the one and not the 99, I've never done either. Whoa, thank you, Lord, that I'm not like one of these. We're going to think that we march, we climb, and get to the house by our effort. What does the parable say? Jesus lifted that sheep and put it on his shoulders and carried it the whole way. That's mercy, not sacrifice. It's not what I have done, but what God has done for me. I didn't march my way to salvation. I got carried there. It's all grace. Younger brother, if you struggle with, I've done these things, and I've tried to get this sorted, and I'm still too much a mess. Maybe someday I could be good enough to be closer to God. Our God, our Maker, our Father stands scanning the horizon, waiting, looking, longing for you to come to the house. He's got a place for you. He's got a robe for you. He's got a party for you. And if you step toward him today, he will run toward you, forgiving you and bringing you into the communion of a spiritual family. So come home, younger brother. Someone said, I've given God a million reasons not to love me. None of them has changed his mind. I love that. I own that. So the Father corrected both wrong attitudes, but don't you love in the parable that the Father moves toward both? Okay, verse 20, the Father saw the younger son, and since he was stepping toward him, he ran to meet him. And then the Father saw the older son, and he's out there on the porch, outside looking in, grumbling about something he should have been celebrating out. Instead of the Father going, well, okay, for him. No, he goes to him. He entreats him. He wants him inside the house too. Now, why does God want these shameful people and prideful people inside the house and part of the celebration? Well, it's just grace. But here's the Father. He goes after both. He moves toward both. He sees all those outside the house, and he longs for them to come in. He sends his servants and says, go to the highways and the hedges, compel them, drag them in. I want them here. Join the celebration of grace, of mercy, not sacrifice. The Father offers to absorb all the cost of your messed up record, your shame and pride, and embrace you in forgiving love through Christ. It's not, okay, son, this younger son, you can come home, but here's how much you owe me. Okay, we'll rack it up, bit by bit. By the time you're 97, you might have. No, I absorbed the cost of all your failures. Mercy. And when we get this, there's a party in heaven. All right. So why be a Christian with a bad attitude? What's crazy is here's the older brother out on the porch, thinking, man, if only I could have a fatted calf with friends and a celebration. And on the other side of the wall, literally, there's a feast with a fatted calf and friends and a celebration. But it's just hung up on it being about sacrifice. And so he's not willing to walk through the door. It's not our good works. It's not our Bible knowledge, not our record, not our performance, not our goodness, not our sacrifice. It's simply our relationship with the Father through Christ that makes everything he has ours. Don't you love verse 31? He even says to that older brother, everything I have is yours. Paul makes a point in Romans chapter 8 that when we're led by the Spirit, we're called the sons of God. And if we're sons of God, we're joint heirs with Christ. We get everything that Christ gets by virtue of sonship. And we'd want to say, well, I'm not worthy to be a son. Just make me a servant. And of course, we are God's servants. But Paul reiterates in Galatians 4, when we receive the adoption of sons, we are no more a servant, but a son and an heir of God through Christ. To come to God, to come into the house means sonship, daughtership, the inheritance of everything that the Father has. It can seem more humble and pious to go, I don't deserve. And we kind of jump up with Peter. No, Jesus, you don't have to wash my feet. Instead of just embracing the grace, saying, yes, I am a mess. I've been trying so hard to get there by sacrifice, and all I do is land in shame or pride. So I'm ready for it not to be me anymore. God, and it can just be you. Yeah, please wash. Yeah, here's my hand and my heads too. My head and my hands too. So our response, as we wrap up here. Wrong attitude 1 that we want to get away from. Well, God would never want me close to him. I'm not good enough, so I'm stuck outside. There's a party waiting if we would just get over ourselves in that attitude about it being about us. Wrong attitude number 2. I'm favored by God because of all I've done. Oh, I know I'm not perfect. I know how to say, yes, I'm the chief of sinners, and how to abase myself and all of those things. But meanwhile, I'm thinking, boy, a lot of those people over there are really a mess. I'm glad I have my record and not theirs. And we need to let go of this idea we have merited a closer place to God, we miss the party. So here's the right attitude. We'll close with this. I embrace the undeserved closeness of sonship. I receive the undeserved grace of forgiveness. And I celebrate the Father's goodness lavished on me and on others. And I want it for those neighbors that are so different from me, those coworkers that are so opposed to me, those people in my community that are so at odds with what I stand for. So I invite you to bow now and just respond before God in prayerful communion with the Father. And you can just, in your heart right now, go from wherever you are, whether it's out in the field of shame or here on the porch of pride, and just recognize that there's an open door, a silhouette there of the Father who, stepping toward you, says, son, daughter, please come inside the house. Why don't you come inside the house tonight? Maybe there's someone here or someone listening to this recording and it's like, well, I've never become a son. I have not been forgiven of my sins, and I've been trying to earn it my whole life, or I've been running from it my whole life. I'm that lost sheep. I'm that straying son. I'm that lost coin. And you today could recognize, if you'll put your faith in Jesus, if you'll confess your sin, if you'll repent of your sin and say, I don't want it to be about my record anymore. I don't want to go my way anymore. I am ready for forgiveness. I've come to myself. I'm tired of these pig pods, and I want to be inside that house. God, would you forgive me based on what Jesus Christ did on the cross for me? Friend, he's got a robe for you. He's got an embrace for you. He's got a place for you in the house. And those that are saved and just struggling with some shame, yeah, sin needs to be dealt with. Jesus doesn't say, oh, I'll accept you with your sin, that's okay. No, he says, if you're sinful, I can save you from the consequence of that, but it's a go and sin no more kind of a deal. It's a, leave everything and follow me kind of an arrangement. So you're going to fall short of that, but my grace is there, and I want you to just, if you've gone outside the house, just come back in. Leave behind your fears of not being welcome. Leave behind your pursuit of worldly pleasures and sins. And then, older brother on the porch, maybe you find yourself here. It's like, I just struggle with being a grouchy Christian and looking at my record instead of God's grace. Leave behind your pride of thinking you should be welcome and others should be rejected. Come out of the striving. Come out of the cold. Don't grumble outside looking in when you should be celebrating inside. Come into the house. Come home. Coming home is fellowship and communion with God. Open your Bible. Talk to Him. Seek and celebrate His work in your life and in the lives of others. Finally, in this moment, think of someone who's outside the house. Someone who's maybe way out in the field or in a far country spending the Father's inheritance right now. That sinner that has threatened your way of life or made you uncomfortable or hurt your family, caused you pain. Take a moment now, pray for God's grace in his or her life. Lord, bring my loved one home. Lord, bring my lost neighbor home. Lord, bring my deviant coworker home. Use me to bring that straying loved one into the Father's house. And then let's celebrate what he does. Make that what we value, that what we work toward and get excited about God's work in people's lives